Hi and welcome to Designing Digital Learning. I'm so pleased that you've joined us. My name is Bianca Raby and I'm the founder of OPEDA. OPEDA is a digital education agency working to raise the bar in online learning globally. I first started my career as a primary school teacher, but I've worked in education technology and higher education for the last 6 years. I personally built my first online course in 2011 and I've had a love for digital education ever since. Once upon a time, we all relied heavily on the knowledge of the teacher, lecturer or the trainer standing in front of us. We also had to intentionally show up to learn formally from the people who had been deemed experts in the subject matter. Well, not anymore. Today we have computers in our pockets and so much information available to us that we often complain of overload. The world is changing rapidly and most say that we are set for the fourth industrial revolution. This rapid change has changed the way we live, work, socialise and of course learn. To contextualise the speed in which we have seen technology advance and become mainstream, it's useful to look at a simple timeline. As a 36-year-old, I'm almost the median age in Australia, which is currently 37. I've had a typical formal education story. Primary school, high school, bachelor's degree, and then in my late 20s, I did my master's. I also had a fairly humble upbringing in a single income middle class family living in country South Australia. So let me take you on a journey to explore how technology and digital devices have shaped my life, and I'm sure some of you will be able to relate as we go. In about 1986, when I was 2, my family bought a Commodore 64. The only thing that I remember about this was that I used to play the Barbie game by inserting a floppy disk. Remember those? What is interesting here is that I've actually had a computer in my house virtually my whole life. They have just come a long way since then. In 1992, when I was 8, we upgraded to an IBM PC. Yep, that's me with that surprised look on my face. My first memories here are of playing Duke Nukem and learning how to use Paint with my friends on the weekend. In 1993, when I was 9, I was given a cassette player for my birthday. This launched me into my mixtape creation phase, as I soon realised that you could record songs from the radio. There was no way at that time that I could have comprehended that any song I could ever have wanted to listen to would be available in my pocket someday. In 1995, when I was 11, we bought Microsoft Encarta 95. This opened up a whole new world of information and I started using my computer for schoolwork. In 1998, when I was 14, I got a Nokia 3210, complete with Snake. There were only a few people in the school that year with a phone, so I doubt that I even sent a message to anyone except for Mum. Then it was time for music to move with us. I got a Discman for Christmas, and you could see how excited this made me. Through the last years of high school, more and more people got phones and texting was common. We used MSN Messenger at night to chat, but we still called people on their home phones. I even remember some of the phone numbers. During my uni years, computers got faster, we stopped using floppy disks, and email became something that we got taught to use and check. We had to attend every lecture though in person because there was no recording. Dial-up internet was common in homes and broadband was being implemented, but there was no such thing as Wi-Fi. I kept in touch with my friends using a flip phone that still charged 25 cents a text message, and digital cameras were all the rage, but no one had thought to turn them around and take a photo of themselves. The selfie had not been invented. Then in 2007, when I was 23, I started my teaching career. Interactive whiteboards became mainstream that year. This changed the way I planned and delivered my lessons immediately. Just a few years later in 2010, when I was 25, I bought an iPod Touch before I moved to London. This was the first computer in my pocket. Then, in 2011, I upgraded to an iPhone and bought a MacBook Air. Since then, there have not been many days where these two items have not been on my possession. And the rest is history. So you may have identified with some of my reflections depending on how old you are, where you grew up. Everyone will have a slightly different digital story. So why is this important to think about in a course about designing digital learning? Well, let's consider Michael, Jessica and Jacob. Michael is 10 years older than me, Jessica 10 years younger, and Jacob 20 years younger than me. Michael is 46, so he probably didn't use a personal computer for anything other than games until he was about 18 or 20. And he was already well into his career by the time he bought an iPhone. He remembers life before the internet and connectivity very clearly. Jessica's 26, and she may remember what a Nokia phone is from her parents, and has probably seen a cassette tape. She most likely had an interactive whiteboard in her classroom from high school and access to an iPad at school. She would have used Google to find information and wouldn't know what Encarta was. It's highly likely that she's had an iPhone with her constantly and connected since she was about 16 or 17. Now let's look at Jacob. He's 16. He has no idea that there was even life before the internet. He probably arrived at school and on his first day learnt to drag his name into the present column on the screen in front of him. He may have even learned to swipe at the same time as he learned to turn a page. Jacob is now on all the mainstream social media channels and is comfortable in all devices to find information he needs when he wants it. In this quick exercise, it's clear to see that just a decade apart, we've had vastly different experiences with technology. This has many implications for how we use it now and how it's embedded into our lives. But regardless of your experience with technology, we are all in it now. It has changed the way we work, live, communicate and learn. Digital education is not something we can ignore. This has been very apparent in 2020. We also can't ignore it because it will be needed to educate our growing population. Globally, there will be 350 million more secondary students and 150 million more post-secondary students by the year 2025. Now that's only a few years away. Currently, only 3% of global education spend is on digitisation, and we've only just scratched the surface. Add to this the sentiment that we will now switch roles around 15 times in our careers, and the predicted shelf life of a specific skill is only going to be about 5 years. Even now we see graduates enter the workforce with skills that have already been redundant as the technology has moved on. The role of educators must be to not just keep pace with these changes, but embrace and innovate on them. I encourage you to reflect on technology and how it's affected you and how you approach new technology as you move through this course. It's not to be feared. If you are an educator, you already have the foundations that you need. This course is for anyone who's worked in education or is interested in doing so, and my hope is that when you finish it, you breathe a sigh of relief. Designing for online has complexities, but you already have the skills. The fundamentals are still the same. We hope that we can share the lessons that we have learned and the hacks that we've picked up along the way. So, enjoy.